Welcome everybody to Art in June, Delicacies of Society, and we are here chatting with Elease Wiggins today. Elease Wiggins is a young woman that I met a few weeks ago, I would say, and was just enamored with the conversation that we've had, and I wanted her to come on and talk to us because she's got this wonderful book called a farewell to welfare. Interesting conversation to be had. And so I wanted us to be able to kind of dig in and dive in. Let's talk about everything that we can talk about in an hour. So hi, Miss Elease, welcome. Thanks for joining me on this wonderful Wednesday afternoon. How you doing? What's going on?
So first of all, thank you for inviting me, for having me, just this entire experience. All is well, and thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you. So, you are an author, but obviously, you know that my interest is really around the arts and mental wellness, right? And since this is May Mental Health Awareness Month, I thought this can be a great opportunity to have a conversation
Yeah.
about all of the things that's happening. You see what's happening with folks. Folks are, attempting to take their own lives, and
Yeah.
people are struggling in silence, and everybody is struggling in some way, shape, or form, but some people are much more secretive about it than others. Um,
Yes.
and a lot of times, what I notice is that creatives, we tend to hide, and we tend to hide behind smiles and laughter.
Mhm.
And so I think that is interesting in and of itself, but I really want to begin to unpack some of that as to why that's even happening. So I know you're an author, but I also know that you run a nonprofit. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the nonprofit, and then we can dig into the book and your process and all of that stuff.
Okay. So I am an author. I self-published in 2015, well, 2014, I know it now, through Amazon. And in terms of the non-for-profit, I started it in 2018 in August. I was working with a GED program in Brooklyn. And what we were finding is that a lot of people weren't passing the math exam. So the director of the GED program and I got together and we took my book and we related the book to the GED curriculum. So they were able to read along, but we were able to talk about noun and adjective like subject and verb, agree, just different things. And when I found out that these were adults, some of them were older than me, and they were returning to school to get their GED. Some of them were raising children and grandchildren, but they kept getting disappointed when they failed that math part. So it was like, oh, I can't do this. So at that time, I established Communities Promoting Reading. And at the time, it was to support student parents. So I partnered with the nonprofit the GED program, the Raymond and Flanagan that was local to that area, and the Brooklyn Public Library. And we did an adult book bag drive where we gave book bags and supplies to adults with the scientific calculators. And then in 2019, the following year, 85% of the adults who participated passed the GED program. So my non-for-profit really started out of an educational need for adult students.
That's great. That's usually how it happens, though, right?
Yeah, right.
You see a problem, you attempt to go in to be a part of the solution, you become a part of the solution, and everybody else wins.
Yes. And, the thing about it is I wasn't thinking, because at the time I only had my business, which is what I used to self-publish, right? And I really wasn't thinking about it being like non-for-profit. It was just like it needed to be done. So I want to say I got incorporated just last year. So we have been doing the work and the paperwork and the process, but we officially became a 501c3 last year, January.
Wonderful. Congratulations. Good,
Thank
good,
you.
good, good stuff. What,
Thank you.
so tell me something. So your program now is located where?
So right now we have programs in two areas. In Inglewood, New Jersey, we host a book club and brunch for moms and caregivers experiencing burnout. where we partner with the All Ability Seniors Group, the middle school and high school of Inglewood, Dwight Morrow
Right.
and JDMS.
My
Yes.
alma mater. Yeah,
Okay, here we go.
yeah.
And some students from Bergen Community College, what they do is all of the students and the teens come and they watch the children. So we have childcare. And then some of the seniors and myself are in a separate room with the moms, and we're crying, we're laughing, we're sharing stories, and then we have brunch. So it's really like a wellness event where you said a lot of people are struggling in silence. So of course, I'm not saying, hey, come if you got anxiety and depression, but I am saying if you're a mom and you want to read a book and you want to bring your children and you want to have brunch, come meet me every third Saturday at the Inglewood Library. We kind of took that model, and we were just recently awarded a grant from the New York State Health Department where we're doing something very similar, but it's upstate New York in rural areas. And the goal of the grant is to get the information out about COVID prevention to those communities that probably didn't have all of the resources because they're in a rural community and things are so far. So it's really kind of night and day in terms of the populations that we're working with, but I'm grateful to be able to stretch and to grow what we're doing.
Nice. So actually, it's funny because I'm gonna go back to something you said,
Okay.
which was, if you have depression or anxiety, we're not saying this is a place to come, but I think you might want to rethink that and rephrase that, because if you have anxiety and depression, it might be a place to come to help, to give you a little bit of a reprieve, if you will, not like
Yeah,
not like you guys are therapists, but you
no.
never know what can help.
The thing is, what I find about the stigma. So let's talk about it. And I'm glad you said that
Absolutely.
because,
Yeah.
you go into every town and you're driving, and it's like, oh, welcome here. We're stigma free, right?
Right. Right.
But a lot of people don't want to identify with it, right? And what
Correct.
I find is, we've been meeting now for a year, this month in May. And when they come, it's like, oh, I thought we were going to do activities with the children. And then the next thing you know, these moms are telling the most horrific stories that you can imagine. And then when they're in the midst of the story, they look up and they look around and they're like, I didn't expect to go here. And it's a safe space for moms to come in and say, hey, I probably just got here. I didn't brush the children's teeth or their hair, but we just needed to get here in this moment just to woosah. So yes, in terms of the stigma is still real, right? But I find that in that small, safe setting is where people can say, hey, I suffer from this, or I'm experiencing this right now, and there's no judgment in the room.
Correct. Which is what it's about, right? I mean, I laugh at that. I think it's equivalent to them people. So sometimes, when people used to say, "Oh, there is no," when you're talking about Englewood, for those people who are looking at this, Englewood is a part of Bergen County, New Jersey, one of the probably more affluent counties in New Jersey. But it's always interesting to me because I remember thinking that folks used to say there's no homeless people in Bergen County.
Right, right.
And I always used to laugh. I thought that was hilariously funny. Just like, Bergen County or any place else is stigma free. I think America is not it's not stigma free by any means. And I think that's why people are taking their own lives, because they don't feel like that is the case, right? So, don't get me started on that soapbox. It's the reason why, though, I feel
Yeah.
it's important for me to be transparent in my own journey around mental health, because I do suffer from depression. And I don't feel ashamed of that, because I only feel ashamed if I'm not treating it or if I'm not managing it, right? And I think that's kind of the story that I think I want to be able to convey through this platform, is that
Mhm.
for folks to begin to understand that there's nothing wrong with that, right? We go
Yeah.
to the dentist when we have a toothache, we go to the foot doctor, we go to our primary care doctors when there's any kind of ailment that our bodies are experiencing. Then what's the problem with going to a therapist when you need to, or seeking help in any other way, shape, or form? But
Mhm.
I feel it's just fascinating to me because I still talk to people who are afraid to even talk about the fact that they have family members who may have already passed away, but they're ashamed to talk about the fact that some of those family members were suffering with some mental challenges, you know? And so I just think that's fascinating. That's all the more reason why we should be talking about this.
Yeah, you know what? I'm two things I want to address is the fact it's kind of saying like, oh, racism doesn't still exist. It does, but it happens in a way where you'll sometimes say, was that racist? Like, because you know, it's supposed to be over. So again, going back to the stigma, you know, we talk about, okay, so in terms of COVID, unfortunately, a lot of people did lose their lives. A lot of tragic things happened. But I feel like one of the blessings of COVID is that it exposed everything that we were taught. You're supposed to get a job. You're supposed to work 9 to 5, have job security. You're supposed to always be booked, busy, moving around. If you're not always constantly moving, then you're not doing something right. It's you. And then when the whole world shut down and people really had to just sit with themselves, which a lot of people unfortunately could not do, it was then okay to say, I have depression, I have anxiety. But for a very long time, especially in our community, like I could tell you my own family would be like, oh, you know, Black people don't have mental health issues or this or
Right,
that.
right,
So, you know,
right.
when you grow up hearing this, seeing this, and it's constantly repeated, regardless of somebody saying, hey, it's okay for you to identify, you're still like, well, maybe I could only identify in this pocket of the world or over here. I can't go on Facebook or Instagram and say, hey, so I think that's what needs to subtly change, because regardless of what, people are still going to judge you. And I'm grateful that you started this platform so that there could be a decline in people feeling like, oh, I have this mental disorder. There's something wrong with me, that this can be a safe space to share. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank you
yeah,
for that.
yeah. No, no, I have to. But the other thing I think about that though is so it's also like when we think about folks who are experiencing homelessness, right? You know,
Mhm.
if you're couch surfing, if you're going to different people's homes and sleeping there different days of the week, you're not considered homeless in your mind, but in actuality you are homeless, right?
Yeah.
But also to add to that, you know, there's a mindset about what people look like who are homeless, what people look like who might be having some challenges from a mental state of mind or a
Mhm.
mental point of view. And so one of the things I think I really want to be able to fully, you know, extrapolate around this entire thing and desecrate this
Mhm.
perspective is that anybody and everybody can be homeless, can have mental challenges, and you could not have a clue, right? Um, Miss America, beautiful, young, doing all the right things, an attorney, you know, and the next thing you know, she's no longer with us, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that if not now, when, right? When do we really have an honest conversation about this? And when do we feel when is it that, you know, we begin to stop the shaming or the ability for folks to say, oh, her, she doesn't even look like she's crazy. What is that? But I really want people to reshift and unbecome so that they can become, right?
Mhm.
And I think that this is imperative because when we talk about the arts and mental wellness, those of us who are super creative are those of us who, as we are creating, are having our own struggles and we're going through those struggles silently.
Yes. Yes.
So I feel I am not so interested in the creative process. I'm interested in what's happening to you as you're
Mm.
going through the creative process,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because everybody only wants to talk about the creative process. So what did you do? How long did it take you to do this? Oh, what colors? What's mixed medium? Blah 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 blah. You know, how many
Right.
rehearsals? How many times do you practice? I don't really care about that. I mean, it's important, yes, for the end result of what is beautiful and aesthetically pleasing to my senses. I want to
Yeah.
know what's happening to you as you're creating this stuff, right? I want to know what's happening to you as you're writing the book. What prompted you to even write the book, right? And what challenges did you find yourself going through? And what did you learn about yourself as you were writing the book versus when you
So
finished writing the book?
yeah, so okay, so what made me write the book is at the time, I was an adjunct professor in the city, and I was kind of doing what they call the adjunct shuffle. I was teaching at 3 different institutions in New York, and I was
That's fun.
raising children. Huh?
That's fun.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So I was raising, I think my daughter was 8, my son was 3. He was not potty trained. So my family was like, he should be potty. Like it was the balance at the time of working, being this professional woman. I was the first in my family to graduate from college. Now I'm a professor. That's like unheard of in my family line. But at the same time, I'm a single mom of 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to classes and my students have all of these stories about why they can't turn in their papers. Why legit stuff, not no like my dog ate it. And I
Right.
had so much passion for them. I wanted to write a guide because I had just graduated from college as a parent. At the time, I wasn't single when I was in school, but now that I'm a professor, I found myself single. And I wanted to guide them. Hey, this is what you should do if you're an adult student, parent, just to, manage both your lives. And then my grandmother passed away. And then life was just like when I could tell you, when I finally made the decision to say, hey, I'm going to put pen to paper, it seemed like life just kept like slapping me. Like whatever could happen to distract me from sitting in front of this laptop and just typing and it going, it was just like, no. So finally, when I did get the time, so I think I stopped teaching. It was too much going on. I was depressed. I was grieving. It was just bad. I used to go to the beach at night and write. And I used to get to the
Mm.
beach at night, right? And sit there. And then my mind would be like, you can't do this. You're dumb. You're not good enough. This won't work. So even when all of the challenges and circumstances weren't like distracting me, it got in here. You know that
The
analogy with
gremlins.
the boat? Yeah, like
Yeah, the
don't let the water get
gremlins.
the boat.
Yeah, yeah.
So my creative struggle for me, even and still until this day, when I'm putting together events, when I'm doing things, there's something in my mind that's like, you can't do this. You're not good enough. Who do you think you are? You remember you're still that girl from, so I find that my creative process for me is getting, changing this, like being intentional about you're not going to think like that. And I think what I've learned is that depending on how you were socialized, even in your childhood, it plays a lot as you're an adult. You don't realize that your subconscious mind is developed by the time you're like, what, 7 to 13. So you're 30, not knowing why you think like this. And it's because you were raised around your aunt. Your aunt was always a complainer. It was always never going to work out. So every time you have an idea like, oh, I'm going to create this, I'm going to do this, you're not good enough. You're that 7-year-old little girl. You're
Right.
whatever
Right.
you do.
Right.
So I learned that I had to kind of fight myself. So what that meant is for me, and that's the reason why I'm in Inglewood, I had to get away from certain environments because if I was fighting myself, I couldn't fight myself and the environment. And it took a really, really long time. I want to say I've been in New Jersey since 2017. I believe last year, the end of 2023, I just started coming into myself where I'm like, this is who you are. And I've accepted it. But it took a very long time.
Wow. And kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
Kudos for you for even beginning to understand that that is necessary for your sanity and your survival, right? Because that's real. That struggle is real,
Yes.
and you have to show up as a parent, even when you
So
don't want to,
yeah, even
when you
want
don't know
to.
how to.
So So my daughter and I, she's 18 now, and we can have these conversations, and she said to me, she said, mommy, when you were like that 6 or how many years ago when I was writing the book, She said, you were there, like we had food, we had a roof over our head, what we're taught we're supposed to do as parents. She said, but you were emotionally unavailable, because she knows what that is now.
Mm,
Before, it's just like, well, why you always got an attitude, or why you look like that, or you're here, but you're not listening to me. So now she's able to articulate, you were emotionally unavailable. Oh, wait, somebody's calling. Wait, sorry. Wait. Okay. Where's Zoom? I'm still there? Okay, good. Um, and that for me is like now my internal check. Like if I'm home and I'm doing something and they're talking to me, I'm reminded now, are you being present for them in this moment? Because I don't want to repeat what I did before. I'm not going to say, oh, that's just how I am. Because that's how our parents were. And we had to stand in a child's place. We had to respect it. But
yeah,
now I don't want my children feeling like, oh, I'm going to get friends, or I'm going to date people who are emotionally unavailable because my parents were. So
absolutely.
yeah.
That's great. That's great that you've come into that realization. You know what I mean? And that you're taking accountability in ways in which probably doesn't always make you feel good, when you're hearing it. When you're hearing it, it's like, what do you mean? I'm the parent. I know this.
And I'm perfect.
Um yeah, and it's very sobering. Sobering when you hear the truth. Even when
Mhm.
it makes you go, ooh, that's
Yeah,
uncomfortable. Ouch, that hurts.
right.
But you need to hear that.
And I think it's who you hear it from and how you hear it. So let's go back to the example of me removing myself from my prior environment. So I will admit to anybody, I'm not the cook, right? I'll feed you, but don't expect for it to be, 5-star. So they'll say like, oh, mommy made it. Oh, we don't expect it to be good. Right.
Ooh,
So, right. So it's stuff like that that's like, oh, that hurts. But then it's like, but it's true. You understand? And
yes,
maybe heard it in that toxic environment. Oh, you can't cook. Oh, you supposed to know it. It would be taunting rather, listen, you're just not good at this. Let's accept this. Nobody's trying to hurt your feelings, but maybe you should just bring water to the cookout, right? And it's like, okay.
oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
But what you said,
But I
it's the
get it. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I hear you on that. That's real. Or she made that potato salad, I ain't eating it. Right? But it's the truth.
yes,
And no
yes.
one will eat it for real.
Then
And
your
that's
feelings will be
and your
hurt.
feelings are going to be hurt yet again. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. And I think that's, to me, we can be very tongue in cheek about this, right? But I think this is the thing that makes it funny but
Yes.
real, right?
Mhm.
This is the thing that makes you say, you know what? I can't even compete with that. I can't even lie about that. I can't even dismiss that, right? And so one of the things that I try to really be mindful of when we're talking about being present is
Mhm.
being able to place yourself in a space where you are open, to hear the truth, right? And as you grow and as your children grow, you begin to see some days, they're like your parent and you're like the child. And those roles are reversed,
It's true.
and you have to like slap yourself a couple times and be like, wait a minute, what just happened here? But I think that's the beauty of transformation of the human
Yeah.
experience, correct?
Yes.
So I think that's the beauty of what makes you say, I can laugh today about this, but I couldn't laugh about it before, right? That's where the healing has occurred. By no means am I a therapist, but I do think I know how to manage certain things in my life because I've been bruised and beaten up
Yeah.
sometimes behind it.
I think that also too, it saves you time and energy. So again, let's go back to the potato salad story. Um, if I know I'm not good at that, I'm not gonna spend all day grocery shopping, preparing it, making it, all of this stuff. I'm gonna put my energy where I know I thrive at.
Absolutely.
So if I know what's not for me, then I can say, hey, this is for me, and let me focus on this so I can do my best at this. And then I'll collaborate with someone who is good at the macaroni salad so that whatever we do, the outcome is better because I perfected me and you perfected you. So
Correct.
that's how I look at that.
No, I appreciate that. So let's talk about that because in your book, you talk about the fact that your book was, you were able to take your book and help other people transform their lives in a way that I'm sure you probably didn't even imagine it would be the case, right? But as you were helping them transform their lives, you were also transforming your life.
Yeah, yeah. So I was kind of, again, this was back in 2014. So let's say between March and April, I had already had the outline, the 25 strategies, because that was a manual for the students. And in the grief and in the depression, what happened was my maternal grandmother died in 2014, March. She went for a routine doctor's appointment. Oh, she'll be right back. Went to the
Never
hospital,
came
they
back.
kept her,
Wow.
never came back. So we didn't expect that, right? What happened was my maternal grandmother died 4 years prior, and the two of them were really, really close. So when my maternal grandmother died, I had just had given birth to my son. He wasn't even a month old. So I'm breastfeeding, I got a 5-year-old, and I'm teaching at a college, I'm adjuncting. So I didn't have time to grieve 4 years prior. So
Got
when
it.
she died, it was just like, okay, life goes on. But when the second one died, it was like, oh, wait, you have no more grandma. Like, it was just like what you said, the slap. So I think I grieved the both of them at the same time. Like I was in denial. And it was bad because I wasn't functional. I wasn't getting up, making sure the children got to school on time. They ate school, sock, whatever, laundry. It was just like the days were a blur. But I used to journal a lot. So I had spoke to this editor from Essence. I don't remember her name at the time. And she liked the title. And she was like, wait, so you're just giving strategies? Like, what about you? Why are you personally connected to this? How does this impact you? And she said, well, you need to put your story in it. So the book then became my journal entry. So when you're reading like me, oh, I'm sad, I'm this, that's from my journal. The strategies are what I created. And it just kind of all came together as one. Did I expect while I was like crying and thinking I wasn't good enough that this book would help other women find courage to leave abusive relationships, raise their family, start businesses, go back to school? No. At the time, I just knew like it's something that I needed to do. I was in so much pain. Uh, Drugs wasn't my thing. I wasn't like in a relationship I really had no outlet. And the book became my outlet.
Wow. So, hmm, it's so, as you're talking, I have a bunch of thoughts running through my head, right? But I was thinking to myself that, you were literally in a space of pain and despair, but you were writing something to help heal. And so out of your pain, you were able to find solutions to heal other people, which then again helped heal you, right?
Yes.
But I think that's the fascinating thing. That's why I like your chapter on faith, because that to me is the fascinating thing about faith and God, or whatever people worship. I worship God, and Jesus Christ. But my point is, sometimes we are the instruments in ways in which we have no idea
Yes.
that we are being a vehicle for something so great,
Yes.
right? And that's where the magic, that's where the secret sauce lies. So I really liked your chapter on faith, because you talk about what is faith, right? And how you are able to, in the grand scheme of things, as you're doing all this stuff, you know, you're realizing that, yes, I have to have faith, but I also have to get up and I got to get moving. I got to do some things, right? I can't just sit and say, oh, I'm going to have faith in God or whatever, whoever you worship, and then it's going to magically happen. It's
Mm-mm.
magic in it, in the process, but I
Yeah.
think there is something really beautiful that happens when we are open, right, to understanding, like, let it flow, right? My previous interview was with my daughter, and she was talking about the flow of things, right?
Mm.
And so I feel like in this thing, in this conversation, I'm watching and I'm listening to you talk about the flow of grief and of pain. And then in the spite of all of that, you're still able to get up and you're still able to journal by the water, flowing water, yet and still, you're hearing the static, but you're still going, right?
Yes.
So talk to me a
Yes.
little bit about the faith piece versus your actual momentum and gumption to move.
Okay. So I went to Catholic school like all my life, except like the last 2 years I went to public school. And, so growing up, Hail Mary, full of grace, Catholic, 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 and then coming home and you live like in the hood. So I was living between two, like total, like a whole dichotomy, right? And so home was different. We didn't pray to Hail Mary. There wasn't so much Jesus, but I did go to church sometimes on Sundays with my maternal grandmother, right? Um, like I said, when she died, I was still kind of like worldly. By the time I developed a relationship with my paternal grandmother was Jesus, 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 Jesus. And at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, shut up. Like, no, grandma, we just called to see how you doing. Nobody cares, right? I can tell this now and it's funny, but at the time, like I'm thinking about it, like it was rude, it was disrespectful, but it
Yeah,
wasn't still. I remember she used to, because it's a lot of us. She has 8 children, grandchildren, great grand. It's a lot of us. And she used to say, you better get your relationship with God because I got mine. Like you could be talking to her about anything. Oh, grandma, it's a beautiful day. You better get your relationship with God. You're like, oh my God, like stay focused. Are you listening to me? And it wasn't until she passed away that I started to understand everything. Like if I got into an argument with one of my cousins or something, she'd be like, pay that no mind, we family, life is this. And it'd be like, no, but this person. So it's like it kind of made sense, but she wasn't here anymore. And whenever things got really difficult, I will always pinpoint her, like, okay, well, my grandmother survived this, or my grandmother did this. She raised 8 children. So I have to say my faith was imparted by my grandmother. And what I kind of feel bad about is there's organizations that I wanted to work with, like during the pandemic, who were working with, single moms, DV victims, whatever. And they would be like, oh, Elease, we can't use your book because you talk about God too much. You can't
mm,
ask me to give you my experience on my transformation, how I went from this to this, without me saying, God saved my life. The Holy Spirit intervened. That wasn't me. I can take the
get it.
credit for a lot of things, but I know what not to take the credit for. And if I'm not allowed to say that, then I'm not right for your
I
institution.
hear you. I hear you full wholeheartedly on that. I hear you on that because I feel the same way. I feel that, I am not going to not tell you that I have a belief in God. I am going to not tell you. My father was a pastor, right?
Mhm.
And even though my father and I, was estranged for a long period of time, my father was a pastor. My mom raised us in the church. So
Mm.
that is my life. Yes, I was a rebellious kid. I was a lot of stuff, but I recognize the fact that it is also there's something stronger and bigger than me that pulled
Yeah.
me through a lot of stuff that I think that some of the other people that I know didn't make it through, right?
Yeah.
It is the
Yes.
power of prayer, right?
Yes.
So as I become an adult and I have my children and I took my children to church, and listen, let's be clear, church wasn't always a fun place to be either, because some people in the church are devils. That's just real. And some
Mhm.
people in the church are sick,
Yes,
for real,
yes.
for real. And
In
that's where you can create more harm sometimes in church than outside.
the world.
But you cannot make me doubt the power of God.
No,
You just can't.
no.
And I am very proud to say that, right? So if my belief and my faith troubles you, I'm sorry. That's all I can say. I'm sorry. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to not uh convey that
Yeah.
or articulate that um in ways, and we're not walking around with the Bible, and doing all of that, but
Mm.
I'm very clear to tell you that I almost lost my life 4 months ago. And
Mm.
it was because you know I had been asking God for something very specific. And it was in the midst of me feeling like, when I tell people this, they go, "Oh my God." I literally started seeing everything started to get very dim.
Mm.
Like, you know, I could tell I was going.
Right, right.
I could tell I was beginning to go. Everything started looking beige and dull, and I had no energy. I could feel myself really beginning to like start the process of checking out.
Hmm, hmm.
And I remember praying, just
Yeah.
praying. But the point I'm making simply is that I remember specifically asking for a very clear path and direction.
Mm.
And when I came out of that hospital and came home, it was almost like my prayers were answered in a way. It just was like a flush of things. And
Yeah.
talking to my daughters and kind of just getting their insight on some stuff, it was almost like God was like just starting to converge and say, this is the path you need to be taking. And as I started taking
Hmm.
this path, I started seeing how everything started to come in alignment, right?
Yes.
You cannot make it up, and you
Mm-mm,
cannot make me doubt it. And
mm-mm.
so I think that the beauty of what you're even saying is magical in a way that I don't think people can fully always understand unless you're experiencing it yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because there's nothing that stops me from going, wow, that blew my mind.
Mhm. Like, thank you. Like, you did that. Okay, thank you. You like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Even when I met you that day, I got in the car after leaving, and I was just like looking up to the sky, like, God, like, are you serious? Like you said, I believe it has to do a lot too with surrender. And what happens is we're trained to, you got to know what the next step is. You have to know. When I think the reverse is true, you don't always have to know. Sometimes you just have to move. You don't know if you're moving in the right direction or not sometimes, but you'll be guided. And once you surrender, and I think that's the point where I just got to last year when I said, I don't know what I'm doing. You've given me everything I ever asked you for, only for me to see, oh, this is not what I wanted. So now I obviously don't know what I want. I want what you want for me now. And I feel like ever since I've done that, I'll make decisions, but I'll know how long to stay with a decision or how to move. It's not the same as before where things where it had to be 4 + 4 = 8. Sometimes it's gonna equal 7.5, but I get it now, right? And it's like, okay, just release it. And I feel like that's the path that I've been on. And that's why the two of us connected, because we kind of just was like, I
So
don't
it's
know.
funny that you say that. Thank you for that. I'm gonna say that, I guess God put me in your path for a reason, and vice versa.
Yes.
So I don't question that. So I guess that leads me to my question of what astonishes you uh amidst this entire process.
I think what astonishes me is, as much as going back to what you said about God. Wait, hold on. Let me cut this advertisement, something added. Wait, okay, cut off. I think what astonishes me is how the negative thoughts still come. It doesn't matter if I just received an award, if I was just told, oh, you're the best, you're this, I was given a crown, I did something very excellent. Immediately after, it's still, you're not, you can't, you'll never be. So I find that I'm still astonished with really? Like, I'm still my own inner me. Like, I'm still my own enemy. I'm still the one that's
Mm,
stopping myself. Like, at this point, like, you would think that, you see people with big egos, but now we know that that's not always true, because sometimes the biggest ego in the room is the most insecure, right?
correct.
You would think that after a certain level of education and accomplishment, you will walk around like, I can do this, not knowing you're walking around like this, like you said, the face, but inside it's like, oh my God, do they see me? Do they know? I think that's what still astonishes me. Like, there's this still level of where I'm afraid and I'm scared about what's about to happen. I'm still doubting myself.
Wow, that's heavy. That's heavy. So, that's really heavy. I think you have to really go inward a little bit more to be able to figure out why that's still happening to you, right?
Mhm.
As I said to you before, by no means am I a therapist. I laugh about it, but I'm very clear about that. I am not at all a therapist, but I also know that, we are given wisdom, knowledge, and understanding
Mhm.
as humans, as co-creators of this world. God
Mhm. Mhm.
created us. And so I think the thing that I want to at least share with you is when you buy your phone, when you buy your car, when you buy whatever you buy, you buy something with a product, that's a product that, and you want that product to be the most optimized that it can be, right? You want to be able to utilize that product and make sure that it works exactly the way it was intended.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I guess my question or the thought that I want to leave you with,
Mhm.
I swear an hour goes by so fast. Um, but the thing that I want to leave you with is, if you expect that product to operate at its maximum potential, God created you and you're his product or her product. And so why are you not thinking that you don't have to operate at your maximum potential, right? Um, and so I liken it, that's kind of how I liken it, right? If I am, getting my fan because I'm getting a flash or whatever, and I want my fan to keep me cool, it's gotta work. It better work when I'm in the midst of that, right? Every day that I wake up and I open my eyes, I'm given the opportunity to operate at my maximum potential. And even when I think that there might be a glitch or there might be something that's a little bit broken or there might be something, I always say to myself, all things are working together for my good. It
Yes,
will
yeah.
work out. Even if I have to say it 10,000 times to get myself in the space of hearing me say it
Yeah,
makes a
yourself.
difference. And so you are good enough. You have the tools to do what you need to do. You have written a book that helps to transform other people's lives. And you now have the ability to take the stuff that you've written and regurgitate it yet again to
Mhm.
help you to continue on that path, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think it's fascinating. And it is for that reason that I say this is why I like to do these interviews, because as much as we are able to create and produce and do great, fascinating things, sometimes we as women, sometimes we as Black women still have that syndrome that
Yes.
we're invisible, we're unseen, we're disrespected, we're not, focused, we're not disciplined, we're not. And
Mhm.
I'm gonna say, we are, we
Yes, we
are,
are.
we do, we will, we shall. You know, what is your superpower? And I really wanted you to think about that. What is your superpower?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
You know,
So I've been told that I have a very and this was actually, I don't know if you know her, eh, Dr. Daniel. She used to work at Bergen Community College. She was like the second in charge. And she didn't know who I was. She thought I was a student when I used to teach there. And when she found out that I was a professor, she used to like go and find me, like look up my schedule and see when I was on campus. And she'd be like, get her in my office. And I never forget, it was one day she was doing something very stressful with the cost. Something had happened and she had to kind of do like damage control. And she's like, I just want you to come and sit in my office because you have a very calm spirit. And what I had to learn is, because I spend so much time having a relationship, understanding myself, re-examining, that sometimes I'll be there and you won't even know I'm there, but eventually like, oh, you're here, because I'm just like a presence sometimes. And again, going back to the earlier example of being taken out of an environment, sometimes we're put in environments not knowing that the environment is going to make you, but it's not meant for you to stay there. So I don't think that I would have actually developed my superpower of my presence and my calmness had I not come from where I came from, had I not experienced what I experienced. Because sometimes, and I'm gonna be honest with you, because you asked me a question the other day and I wasn't able to answer it. I wasn't diagnosed with a mental illness until 2022. I had experienced something very traumatic while while I was in a doctorate program, and I had to drop out. So I was becoming a mental health professional, and then I went from being the student learning to being the client. So I'm looking at my textbooks like, oh, I got this. Oh, this is me. But just because I can identify it doesn't mean I can readily change it.
Right.
And what happens now is, because of therapy, because I'm still in therapy, like I might change a therapist every year, but I'm still getting help. I learned that I can actually feel other people's emotions without them saying anything. And then once they speak to me and they can confirm it, because sometimes I'm like, am I being judgmental? Do I really feel this? Is this
Right,
what I'm
right, right,
feeling? Right.
right.
And then when they open their mouths, it's like, oh my gosh, this is real. So now I understand my superpower is really kind of being empathetic, in a sense where not so much that I'm taking on, but I can feel it and say, hey, let's spin it around. Not for me to go home and now I'm sad because I didn't understand my superpower before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But now that I understand it, it's like, okay, feel it, right? But give it back. Let's
Got it.
redirect the
Got
energy.
it.
So that's what I would
Totally.
say my superpower
Well, thank
is.
you for that. So I want to know the name of the book, of Farewell to Welfare.
Yes, 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 yes.
And where can you get the book?
So you can get the book on Amazon. It's sold in 2 versions. I'm actually even still doing videos now on my YouTube channel. It's called Reawaken Your Light, for people who are burned out, like you said, and you just need a chance to like get it together and get around other people who may have your similar experiences.
Got
So
it.
yeah,
So Amazon.
yes, ma'am.
Got it. Wonderful. Website?
We're still building the website now, so stay tuned. Beautiful things are to come.
Okay, terrific. Um, I would like to come one day to one of your Saturday experiences.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, so do let me know when that's happening. I hope to see you at the launch
Yes, ma'am.
on the 19th. And I hope to continue to follow all of the good things that you're doing.
Yes, likewise.
So thank you for your time. An hour goes so quickly. It goes so quickly, but I'm so glad we had this time together just to sing a song. What is that? Just to have a whatever, the Carol Burnett thing. Just to have a laugh or sing a song. That's what it was, you know. Oh my God, I'm forgetting everything. But I so enjoy this. I enjoy talking to so many different people and understanding who you are and why you do what you do. It fills me up and it gives me joy. It gives me hope. It gives me grace to be able to continue this race. And I am so happy that you're in the race with me.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Deep bow to you. And we will talk soon.